Okay, boys are here from Going for Two. We are back live to recap the weekend, and what a weekend it was. First time in a long time that all the boys can come on here smiling. I know the Longhorns didn't pull through for you there, Kalen.
Yeah.
But for the most part, this is the first time I think all year, at least that I can remember, that we can all kind of bounce around, and each of our NFL teams won, with the exception of the Rams and Liam. But that was a preseason game at best. So maybe,
Also, he can't see Liam's face of disappointment, so that's a positive,
yeah.
right?
Well, he just turned his camera off, so we can't see him at all. But
Taking shots
great.
there. Colt McCoy would be offended by that. I read a stat here today that he has more wins. Was a starter with the Cardinals 3 than he had with all his previous teams combined, and they're all against NFC West opponents and all on the road.
Well, that's because he played for the Browns. That's how he started.
Yeah, and the Niners and the Commanders.
I'm gonna say that stat matters about as much as Josh McDaniels' record as a coach, which I read.
He's getting fired, right?
No, apparently not. Apparently he's getting.
I think that's the kiss of death, though. When owners like, "We got you." Yeah, okay, you're out.
Look, this isn't usually what we do. We're just jumping right in here, but you've always told me that you don't want a virgin as a quarterback, and that's why you don't like Zach Wilson. How about a guy that's crying at the press conference after they lose? Give me. I
also don't like. Yeah, no, you gotta be the one for the guys. You can't do that. You're supposed to lead men. Like, if you want to go cry, go with your family and do it. Like, you can't do that at the press conference.
Right.
I didn't see it. I chose not to watch it when Kalen sent the link to it because I was like, I can't watch a grown man cry.
But
like, this is the same guy.
Go sit in the shower. Go sit in the shower and cry if you need to cry.
The worst part is like he posted a video like a year or two ago on social media where his kids are playing like Fisher Price basketball and he smashed the ball out. He's like, "There's no free baskets in this house." I was like, I like this guy.
Love that.
And now he's crying at press conferences, and I'm like, I can't do it. I think that is why Brady came out and said, "You're rolling with that motherfucker," and that's what he meant.
He's soft. He doesn't have the mental fortitude to win in the league. He has the best weapon in the league, Devontae Adams, and he can get him the ball. And Josh Jacobs is having what we would probably consider as a breakout year for him, and a guy that looks like he's going to head into free agency and get paid. And I know Kalen's mad, and Kalen's going to jump in here in a second. But how are you 2-7 right now? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, okay, so I'm going to sound like a bit of an apologist here when it comes to Derek Carr. I have been up and down the roller coaster of emotions when it comes to that guy and whether or not I got his back or not. And then I have to look at this year. And it's like the year after there was all the turmoil again in Las Vegas with the Ruggs and the John Gruden and the Arnett. I mean, there's 2 first-round picks. Most teams don't recover well when your 2 first-round picks don't play or are off the team. And I know that firsthand with Isaiah Wilson, and now looks like Caleb Farley we're going to lose for the season too. Those don't pan out. You have another pick that was in Leatherwood that was supposed to be a decent left tackle that doesn't pan out. This is a defense that has been a shell of itself over the last 25 years. I can't think of the one time that Derek Carr had a defense inside of the top 20. I'm not making that up. Like inside of the top 20 in his career, it's just never happened. I know it's not on the quarterback to have a good defense, but a lot of good quarterbacks are going to usually have a defense that is able to keep the other team off the field a little bit. You know what I mean? Like they have the opportunity to take more shots. And then you look at the players this year. Darren Waller, you're talking about ghost of yourself. Even when the guy's on the field, he after getting the vying for this contract and everything, completely invisible. Hunter Renfrew, the guy had 113 catches last year. What's he got now? Like 30 on the year?
Devontae has them all.
Well, no, that's the thing. Because so I want to fall back to that too, right? The best weapon in football, Devontae Adams, outside of Tyreek Hill, I would say. But then we're also then trying to say that Derek Carr is Aaron Rodgers, and he's not. He's not Aaron Rodgers at this point in Aaron Rodgers' career. He won't be Aaron Rodgers in 4 years into Aaron Rodgers' career. Right, like Aaron had a mediocre offensive line because Bakhtiari was gone forever. He had a decent running game that Matt LaFleur was able to use there, and he used just one weapon all the time in Devontae Adams. That's unfortunately not what Derek Carr is going to bring to the table. And can you win some games? I think you can win some games with Derek Carr. Unfortunately, with the defense, like another guy, Abrams, that got cut and then picked up off somebody with waivers this past week. You know what I mean? Like it just the additions, the things that are there, the high end draft picks that John Gruden really want and enforced it and really pushed to get those players where Mayock was taking the later rounds. How does a team recover? I just don't know if you can. And then you add on the injuries that have been this season so far. I'm not trying to make excuses, but you lose so many times or for so long, and you just become a loser. I mean, I don't want to call him a loser for crying. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. But
I am
how many
100%. I am.
times
Like he's a loser because he cried. He could
how
have
many
taken
times
that
can you
like a
get beat
man
in a
and
close
said,
score
"Hey,
game?
what's that?"
How many times can you get beat in a close score game before it breaks you? I guess. I mean, more or less, right?
Yeah, but you don't go to the press conference and cry. Like, how are you supposed to lead men? Like, I know we're trying to be a softer generation. I get it, but that's the way it's going. But that's going to a whole new extreme. Like, I don't want to go play for him.
Yeah,
Would you
well,
go play
I don't
for him?
think nobody wants to go play for him. And when you start to break down the trade, and in the preseason, they were one of those teams that won the preseason, but overall, you gave up draft picks that you desperately need now because you're cutting all your draft picks for Devontae Adams, who clearly still has it, clearly can still do it, can get himself open, but only if Derek Carr can get him the ball, and he's not making a difference. So
Well,
it's a waste of a trade.
I would say that the quarterback is the one position where I don't care if you're that emotional guy or you're that hot-headed, angry guy that Tom Brady is on the sideline sometimes. I don't need my quarterback to be Lawrence Taylor and angry all the time and aggressive when he talks to the media or come out angry after, being 2-7 in this. I don't care if my quarterback is one way or the other emotional side that way. Like that's what I need my middle linebacker and my strong safety to do. I need that one edge rusher to be that guy, my center to be that guy that is going to rip somebody's hair out and brag about it for the next week. I don't need my quarterback to do that. Just deliver the fucking football. And
Yeah, but
He's
unfortunately,
not even doing that though.
yeah,
Like,
but
that's his
what
job.
you
He's not even
what
doing
you
that.
what you need from your quarterback is look at some of these rookie quarterbacks coming in, and I'm going to say Pickett just because I watch his press conferences after every game. They got crushed by the Bills and they got crushed by the Eagles. He sat through both press conferences. They said, "What were you thinking when you threw this pass?" He's like, "Well, we were down 30 points. I was thinking scoring might be a good idea today." Like
I
that is
agree.
what you need from your quarterback.
I get you,
Like,
but he's
you
4 games
love
in.
Joe Burrow. Like, that's your
He's
dude. And
Yeah.
like, you're gonna take Derek Carr, a guy crying in a press. You think your boy Joe Shiesty would ever cry in a press
Yeah,
conference?
absolutely. You know what? I will fall back on that, Chad, because this season already, once this season, he's done it twice, but once for sure, he apparently sat for 45 minutes staring in blankly out of his locker, just sitting blankly.
Yeah,
That's
in
Joe
the locker
Shiesty.
room.
He did it last year when he lost the Super Bowl. He did the same thing. And no, it's a
Different
Super
in
Bowl.
the
story.
It's a
locker
little bit
room.
different. But he's a guy who's certainly emotional too. Like those are guys that I just don't care if they're. What was the other quarterback that you had mentioned there? It was Joe Shiesty and who else?
Who I said?
Was the other? Oh, Kenny Pickett. Kenny
Yeah.
Pickett. He's 4 games in. Give this guy, 5
Five.
head-pounding seasons, 6 different offensive coordinators, 3 head coaches, or maybe even more.
He'll
than
never
3
have
head coaches.
he'll never have to go through that.
I agree. He'll probably
it's
never
a bad
have to go through that. But if
he
you
doesn't
put
play for a bad
player-
organization.
if
He also
you put-
re-signed
well,
there
I agree.
willingly.
But
So-
that's what I'm saying. I mean, some of this fault is not just on Carr. Some of it has to lay on this organization has been inept since basically Rich Gannon left. Like this has never been the same team ever since then. So again, you beat your head against the wall so many years in a row. That being said, I don't see Mark Davis crying to the media. I see him coming out and smiling and saying, it's frustrating, yada yada yada. We still got our coaches back.
The fact is this: if you called your boss right now and you started crying, say, "I suck at my job and I can't get my work done," do you expect him to take mercy on you? And the answer is no. And another guy that's not getting any mercy, and I think that we need to start being a lot more critical of, is Josh Allen. Probably the best player in the league. I'm willing to say the most talented player in the league, but his head has outgrown his helmet, and he feels like he can do things that he's really not capable of doing. And I get it. He's got a sore arm. He's got a sore elbow. Doesn't matter. You've thrown 4 red zone interceptions over the last 2 weeks. It's unacceptable. The Bills should have stomped the Jets. They should have stomped Minnesota. Right now, if I were to tell you that the Bills are in 3rd place in the AFC East, would you believe me?
Well, okay. So what I'm very confused about is that even when the guy, I mean, they had a limited passing attack to the game. He still let it rip when he needed to. But he got out of the pocket. He ran the ball, using his legs, what he's used to doing. But the guy still took freaking hits, man. Like how many times? I don't care that you're 6'5". You were already hurt. What else do you need to do to stack on that injury? Now it becomes a shoulder injury or a rib cartilage injury, or you blow your knee out sliding to the ground. Like, what else needs to happen to you when you already have an injury before you realize that the coach is in your head saying, slide or stop doing that or get out of bounds, throw the ball away, stop trying to be the hero at, number like the very end of the game, or then regulation is, or not the end of the game, but regulation. Like, that's another scenario. Like, what is going on there? How does this guy fumble the ball? This is such an easy snap. A quarterback, they talk about how many quarterbacks across the league don't do quarterback sneaks. Like, there's only like 5 or 6 that really do them throughout the league routinely. Like, this is not like an off chance doing it once a game. They'll do it a few times a game. Why is it such a hard handoff? Chad, tell me, you were quarterback. You coach your quarterbacks. How does this happen more than once this year?
Do you want to know the truth?
Yeah.
Because we run a college game. How many colleges going to center, Kalen?
Right.
That's the honest answer, right? Like, you're a Texas guy. You guys don't go under center. I don't know the last time Notre Dame went under center. I want to say 2010. Even these power offenses in college are running out of the shotgun. No one's going under center anymore. Yeah, when we played football, everybody was under center. You didn't fumble snaps because you literally took, in practice alone, you take over 100 on top of just the extra 10 minutes before practice you would do going out under your center and taking them. I can tell you right now, I've coached quarterbacks. I've been in OC. I've coached every position on offense except the offensive line. And I can honestly tell you, no one practices snaps. You just expect your center to snap a ball and your quarterback to take it, which sounds really, really simple, but there's a lot of things that do play into it if you're not doing it every single day. And honestly, like, I think Josh Allen is one of the best players in football. I think no one can deny that. We're all going to agree on that. But it looked like the moment he was in one of those oh shit moments, I cannot go backwards. And he was worried about falling forward before he ever got the snap. And he was in a shitty position. Realistically, they should have just taken the safety. Like, that's a coaching mistake. You're backed up. Why would you? Yes, the quarterback sneak sounds simple, but you're still putting your quarterback in harm's way. First off, once you just said he probably should take less hits. If you go to hand the ball off to a running back, you're already 3 yards deep in the end zone, and you're risking a player getting injured. Or you can just take the safety, kick the ball deep, and play defense.
Yeah, which I know they were. Why did you take the safety? 49 seconds left. Take the safety, right?
So that's a coaching thing. That's less than the Josh Allen. That's a coaching, and I hope McDermott learns from it, because like now you're not going to get home field. Like now you're probably going to have to go to Kansas City.
Right.
I don't want to go to Kansas City. I don't think anybody wants to go to Kansas City.
Yeah, they don't want to go back there. They were there last year, right? Like that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, but as far as the snap goes, it happens. Like, I don't understand it, especially at that level. But yeah, no one practices it. That's the real answer.
Well, yeah.
But I want to talk about one other thing in this game.
Yeah.
That fourth quarter was wild.
There's lots to talk about, because I think that, like what I said, it sounded like it was disrespectful to the Vikings. I think that we've disrespected the Vikings a lot, but I think that they're legit.
The thing I don't understand is when the Vikings took the lead, they sat back and played this, like, not even like worse than a prevent defense. How can you let a team, like, you've watched Josh Allen throw the ball wherever he wants? You know he's going to run. You're literally just watching these guys run across. You're just giving them the sidelines. You don't even take away the sidelines. You're just giving them everything. You let them walk right back down the field. At what point, as a head coach, this is O'Connell's first year too, you go to your defensive coordinator like, hey, get after these guys. If I'm going to lose, I'm going out my way. I'm not going to let someone walk down the field on me. Like, I'm going to go out on my fucking shield. And I'll take it with the heat, with the media any day of the week. Because me just letting them walk down the field and get in the field goal range, that's actually not coaching either. That's just bending over and taking and saying, well, I hope for the best. No. Play defense, play to win a game.
Yeah, and that's fair. But I mean, if you blitz him and then he breaks out and then he runs for 50 yards, like, then you look like an even bigger asshole.
Hey man, I'd rather go it that way than let him just walk down the field and embarrass me.
And playing defense, like you mentioned, taking a knee? Why didn't you just run it up the gut? This is a team that you were having decent running success against, even with your running backs who are not that good. But this is the 3rd worst rushing defense in the league. Like, this is not a team that doesn't matter if they stack the box. Teams are going to run on them and be successful anyway. You needed a single yard. Like, you can't hand it off. This is a team in Buffalo that has prided themselves on investing in the offensive line. They picked up free agents. They draft players. They have the players to be a jumbo set on the half-yard line, if you will. And I just think that was an absolute miss. The trade, coming back to, they haven't looked very good for a couple weeks now. They traded for Nyheim Hines at the trade deadline. I thought that was a fantastic pickup for them. Watching him, what he did for the Colts, they have not used him at all, even remotely, the way the Colts did. And I think that once they start to incorporate him a little bit, like even Nyheim Hines could have been successful on a little pitch out there to get you that half yard if he needed to. I know Singletary ain't going to take the edge, but Hines might be able to do that for you.
Yeah, but the Hines deal was to get Zach Moss out of town more than to bring Hines in. Like
it's a win. It's a win. If your goal is to get out Zach Moss, great. If you get Nyheim Hines out of it, even better. The guy's a fantastic running back. Or but like change of pace back.
They want James Cook to be the guy, so they're going to continue to try and use him. And between him and Singletary, that's their 1-2. If one of them gets hurt, then they have Hines there as their insurance policy. But that was just to get Zach Moss out of town. And if you got to take a contract back, which they obviously did, Nyheim Hines makes more than Zach Moss did, so they had to take a little bit of salary back. It's just an insurance policy. I don't think that he plays really until playoff time, and only then it'll be sparingly unless there's an injury. I don't know. The game tonight, we got the Eagles and Washington, and we always like to bounce around and talk about our friends over at Coolbet Canada. We always find our best bets all around. Kalen doesn't really provide any insight on his best bet, but he might have one that if you're betting Skittles, then you're a Skittle better. Then Kalen might have an idea for that. But Chad, I know you got one, so you fire one up exclusive from Coolbet Canada.
We had Heineke passing yards. It's 214. It's paying plus money. I'm taking the under though. 214. I don't think he gets that tonight. I don't know the exact odds on it. I know the over was plus money. It was at 104. So I'm sure the under will be a little bit not far off of that anyways. That Eagles defense is going to get after them. Their offensive line is not the greatest, and the defensive half back and their half field anyways is absolutely unreal in Philadelphia. And outside of Terry, I don't think they have anybody that can do any real damage there. And I think it's a pretty safe bet. So if I'd be taking, I don't ever take the under, especially for passing yards. It's not my style. I think going under is the quitter's way out, but I think tonight it's a safe money.
So today they're going to get back Johan Dotson, rookie from Penn State. Had a great couple of games, jumped right out of the gun. So between him and Samuel and McLaurin, I think that the defense is going to be pushed back a little bit. And because of that, I like the Brian Robinson over rushing yards, which is about 37.5. And I also like to get him in the end zone, which the last I looked, it was plus 210 or 250 or something like that. I should have wrote it down, but I didn't. But I think that's great value, and check that out. Throw together a little bet builder over on Coolbet Canada and keep rolling through that. Sticking around in the AFC East, do I have to take back what I said about the Dolphins? Because maybe they're good.
Maybe it's not just the Dolphins in general, but just Tua. I think maybe if you could just take back what you said about Tua.
All right. I take back what I said about left-handed quarterbacks, and apparently bringing in the San Francisco run game and having two of the best receivers on the field and a pass-catching tight end makes you okay to be left-handed. So all you left-handers out there, as long as you can,
there's a formula now.
Yeah, as long as you can quarterback an all-star team, you have an opportunity. Because I think it's legitimate, and I'm a wagerer, as you guys know. I made two big wagers yesterday. One, I bet on the Dolphins to win the division, still getting plus 220 on it. And two, and we'll dig into this because this is gonna raise some eyebrows. I went and got the San Francisco 49ers to win the Super Bowl at plus 1,200.
I know Eli will be happy about that one.
Yes, sir.
Jimmy Garoppolo might be the best quarterback to win football games without throwing touchdowns. It's amazing.
That offense is unreal. And look, that offense originated in Miami. So Miami just shit kicked the Browns. The Browns are officially finished, right? I mean, I think they're even below the Steelers in the division now. So it's officially, by the time Deshaun Watson comes in, he's more likely to try our new Caesar spice for the secondary spot of it than to play in a playoff game. And the Browns, I mean, they're looking at next year, right? Like the Browns are dead. Miami is very much alive. The fact that they have that advantage, and you mentioned the Bills might need to go to Kansas City to win an AFC Championship game. What about the Bills having to go to Miami in maybe the divisional round?
I want to talk about this Tua thing because we've roasted him for 2 years. Me and Shane have been ruthless. And remember, we talked about this before the season started, and we were
We're
like,
not nice people.
I try to say one thing nice today. Unfortunately, by the time I get to the show, it's already been used up.
Yeah.
The problem is like not just the problem is like what we said is we also like why are they bringing all these pieces in if Tua is not the guy? I honestly do believe they were unsure if he was the guy, but it's like if you like I said at the end of the season, if you fail with this team, we know it was you.
Right.
They've given him all the parts around him. They gave him a phenomenal running game. Like you said, this took San Francisco's backfield, so they already know the system. And they put the two fastest guys out wide. So if you want to stop the run, we're going to throw it over top of you. You want to play back, we have these two guys that are going to run the ball all over you. And Tua's I think he's almost passing at 70% this year. He has no problem dinking and dunking it, which is what made Tyreek Hill can take the top off anybody. But his bread and butter is those little quick screens, quick slants, and running that drag right across the middle of the field because no one can keep up with him. Which is the perfect kind of player for a guy like Tua. He doesn't have the world's biggest arm, but he is accurate.
Yeah, well, exactly. And even the dink and dunk plays, because of how quick they are, they can make 20, 25 yards look really, really easy. But is it fair to say that Miami is a legitimate contender? Like, could we be looking at the 49ers and the Dolphins in the Super Bowl?
I think we're looking at the Chiefs and Dolphins could be the AFC Championship game. I think that's where it's going to end, unfortunately.
Ooh, that'd be a nice little storyline.
I just don't think any right now. I think Patrick Mahomes is playing at a different level than everybody else. I think he's found it again. It also goes to show that they didn't need Tyreek Hill, which I remember in week 1 we were all making fun of them. Yeah, it's like I think we're 0 for 2 now on Tua and now the Chiefs. So I guess we are wrong sometimes.
I don't like to admit to that, but yeah, I mean when you look at the Chiefs' offense, Juju started to step up, but I can't imagine that he's going to be playing for the next couple of weeks. He got monstered.
I don't think he knows who he is right now or who he was.
Coming back to the Dolphins, if they have to go through, Kansas City, a lot of players don't know how to take that. They don't know what the playoff atmosphere is going to be like in KC if it's their first time being there. They got a big beneficial player like on the team there in Tyreek Hill that can kind of walk them through the motions, right? Prepare them what Arrowhead's going to be like. How maybe they prepared themselves for when it was super loud for quiet counts or whatever you want to call it. In order to be successful. So having him on the team, I think, is going to be crucial if they do have to go through KC. And then I think that Jeff Wilson pickup was just like they had a good run game with Mostert before. That guy, you talk about like last week, we talked you have to have a good run game and defense, and you'll be successful in the playoffs. That is the type of player that you are able to lean on heavily when it comes playoff time. And he hasn't taken a lot of snaps this season, so he's got some fresh legs. And we still see what Mostert can do with the ball in his hands. I think he still has like the highest average or something like that over the last 4 years per carry. So he's still lightning in a bottle himself, whether it be catching a ball or running the ball. But that Wilson pickup, I think, is just huge for them. It's really going to pay dividends down the road. I know Chubb is obviously a big one, especially with them losing Ogba, I think went down for the season now, right? But, and I mean, it's weird, crazy how the NFL world works. You trade for somebody like Chubb, and then your other starter, Ogba, who's been pretty successful for the last 3 years there with you, goes down for the season too. So giveth and taketh away.
Yeah, you got to be prepared. And you giveth and taketh away, and, we'll stay on the Chiefs. Losing Schuster to that huge hit. And I think at one point, Valdez-Scantling went into the locker room to get bandaged up a little bit. And in comes Kadarius Toney. And the internet and Twitterverse was all over Kadarius Toney transforming into Tyreek Hill, which I thought was kind of funny. I mean, not true, but still funny to look at.
Well, I think that you're comparing Patrick Mahomes and Daniel Jones. I think that's the difference in Kadarius Toney.
Well, Now, that being said, did you see that play yesterday when he caught the one play and he got bumped by the corner? So his glove came off. It came halfway down his hand, and mid route he puts his glove back on, fixes it, and jumps up in the air and catches the ball. Like the ball's in the air as he jumps to fix his glove. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Of course, you talk about the Twitterverse like that. They were all over that too, and that's how you make a name for yourself in your first couple of games and getting touchdowns. Like he never had one in New York, right? So fantastic. He's got him in KC already, but plays like that, people remember, right?
Well,
And
that guy levitated. That guy just floated up there. He just floated up there. Like his hang time on the like that hang time on that jump was unreal.
Right.
And right, like we talked about, the NFL world giveth and it taketh away. Juju found his stride in the last 3-4 weeks there. He's probably going to be out for the next 3 to 4 weeks potentially. And then you've got Tony who just gets traded there and looks like he potentially might be able to resurrect his career. I know we're overreaction Mondays here, but he's had a couple of decent games there. Specifically yesterday was awesome.
Yeah, and when he went to score his touchdown, he kind of limped in, pretending he had a hamstring injury, which I think is kind of funny and a big slap in the face to the Giants. So, good for him. Good for me because I went and picked him up in a couple fantasy leagues, just walking in thinking, where can I get a receiver from at this point in time? But I grabbed him, so if it works out, that's great. If it doesn't, easy cut. No. What about? Go ahead.
Are you still staying on this game, or are we going to another game right now?
Whatever you want, man.
Well, I know we talked about it in the beginning. We talked about the Colts and the Raiders here, but I really want to come back to the Colts. We haven't talked about the Jeff Saturday thing here. And I want to kind of lean in again to this overreaction Monday where people are kind of hyping up and blowing the tires up of Jeff Saturday getting his first win. He's an undefeated coach with no experience. He did what all us Joes would love to do. Tweet about how bad a team is one week that, the Raiders, I don't know if you guys saw that tweet or not, but said the Raiders were horrible. And then the following week comes off the couch and is able to coach a team to win over that team. Obviously I fucking hate the Colts. I think this is a disastrous hire still. I think they beat a very inept and completely injured Raiders team. What do you guys think about this? Does Jeff Saturday stick around? I know your boy Cower had some wonderful things to say about the hire, but what do you guys think about the hire?
So when it comes down to it, if you believe that Jeff Saturday did any of the coaching that went into that win, I have a nice plot of land in Iceland to sell you.
Yeah, right.
Like that guy is a figurehead. If there's ever been a figure, he's the CEO now of the Colts football organization, the same way that Herm Edwards did for Arizona State, and Arizona State won 2 games and they had all these moral victories. Guess what? Herm Edwards got the program in trouble. They had all these all these violations, and his ass got ran out of town 3 years later. So
did you see how old? I mean, I know age isn't a thing because the McVays have changed that thought process in the NFL world, but do you see how old his offensive coordinator is?
No, but it's the guy that used to coach for Seattle. I saw him on the sideline, right?
He's 30.
Oh.
Shane, we know plenty of 30-year-olds you wouldn't let even be a night shift manager, let alone be the offensive coordinator in an NFL team overnight. You know what I mean? Like this guy's never called a play in his life. I just love the shit show. There's the Colts. It's unfortunate that they had to beat the Raiders like that for our boy Rick, but this is not going to end pretty. And I'm going to love the sound bites because the first media show that he had there, I thought was funny. I thought he had a couple of quick quips. People were referring him to Ted Lasso, the way that he ended it there, right? I think that we're going to have a few more as he falters throughout the season. But I don't think he expects much. I think it's an absolute joke that let's see if I can build my resume. I think lines like that are some shit. I don't like that.
It's literally like fantasy camp is what it is. It's like he's like the Make-A-Wish kid. He's like, I'm on my way out. So I want to coach NFL team. So hey, Mr. Ursay, can you give me my last wish? Like that's what this is. Like you lost a high school football game a few weeks ago, you loser, and now you're coaching the NFL as a gift. The only reason why he's there is because they need someone to blame when this whole season goes to shit. Like Ursay doesn't want it on him, doesn't want it on Ballard, doesn't want it on him, obviously. So we'll bring in this scapegoat, and Jeff Saturday's like, sweet, I'll do it because you're a head coach here. He's probably going to get an OC job somewhere, probably going to get an offensive line coach somewhere. The big thing is usually a center is the smartest guy on the field, so I'll give him that. He does understand X's and O's, and he isn't that far removed from the locker room, so he understands how the players are. But you've never game planned before. You've never called plays before. We all know that. They didn't have anybody in their roster that called plays. I think that's the only reason why Matt Ryan even started, because he probably called his own plays. He probably told that 30-year-old kid what they were doing.
That's fair. I didn't even think of that.
Because you can't, like, Sam Ellinger sucks. No offense, Kalen. I know he's a Texas boy, but he's trash. You can't have him out there with the guys never called plays before. So who do you have to go to? Matt Ryan. Hey, I know you're in the geriatric ward, but hey, can you do me a favor today? Can you call this game? Like, that's literally what it came down to. I felt the first half the guys came guns a blazing and they're kind of up for it. But that second half, like, what we always make a joke with teams not adjusting at halftime. That team did nothing. They tanked in the second half, and that's not like he's never coached before. He doesn't know what he's supposed to do. You can rah it up all you want. You can say call audibles, do this, but just because you're a center in the NFL doesn't mean that you know what you're doing. Like Vrabel, I agree, one of the best coaches in the league. Mike Tomlin, one of the best coaches in the league. They played. They also worked their way up to get there. They weren't like, hey, Braves, I know you won 45 Super Bowls with the Patriots. We're just going to give you this job now. No, that's not how it works. He had to go coach positions. He had to be a coordinator. Then you can become a head coach. That's how the system works. You can't leapfrog 4 positions.
Well, and I think that like Irsay is looking right in division and going player coach, and Vrabel and what he brought to the table to the Titans, because they've been successful for 5 straight years since he's been there, right? Like, there's no doubting that. So I'm sure that was part of the logic in bringing him in there. But it's like you mentioned, it's a center who this isn't the CBA negotiations. I know that was his big righteous, crowning was that he's negotiated the last big CBA or the first big CBA with the salary cap and all that jazz. So this isn't that, right? This isn't. You had Peyton Manning, who called 3 plays in the huddle and would check to them one. Now, did you have to be as smart as Peyton to know what he was doing? Sure. I mean, you mentioned that center has to be one of the smartest players in the field, if not the smartest player. I'm going to say that he probably was. He was, a 13-year player. But I'm interested to see what type of player or coach he brings to the practice, right? We've seen many videos and players joking about the way that Vrabel still is up in the defensive lineman's face. He's doing the drills with them. He's weightlifting with every single one of them. Jeff Saturday, like all the offensive linemen, is not the big bodied guy that we saw back when he played in the NFL like Joe Thomas is. But is he going to be in the weight room and lifting with these guys? Is he going to be with the offensive linemen? This offensive line has been dog shit this year. This is one of the highest paid offensive lines in the league. They have been underperforming, and this past game they were much better. Jonathan Taylor broke off some big runs that kind of helped them a little bit. But is he going to be able to get in the trenches with these guys and fix that? Is he going to be able to get in the trenches with the D line that has also lost a massive step after trading for somebody like or not trading, but signing that player from Vegas in Gokway coming over there? He's not done very well this year. So is that going to be Jeff Saturday's going to bring to the table? This is how it would block your hand maneuvers, right? And trying to coach up his D lineman. This is what would beat me in the past. Maybe this will help you beat centers or guards in the future. I'm interested to see what he brings, but I just don't think it's going to. That first press conference talking about being a leader of men and then talking about how you might not be good at it. We talked about quarterback crying. You basically admitted fault even before you walked into the room about being a coach, and we already assumed it. So that doesn't paint a pretty picture for me for the rest of the year.
Yeah, he gave the entire team off Monday because they won yesterday, which is a common thing. But I don't know who they play this week. Whoever they lose to, that will be looked at as an opportunity that they just kind of gave away to everybody. So cool for him that they won.
They got the Eagles this week, Shane. So
Yeah, they're losing.
So they're going to get stressed down.
Welcome to the NFL is what's happening.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Whatever. I mean, to me, it's a story because there's nothing else to talk about with the Colts. But other than that, there's no real story behind it. Yeah, Josh talking about Dan Campbell. We all know how that's working out for the Lions.
I think it was funny how that guy was pretty interested in what was happening in the Vikings game during his press conference. I mean, I like it reminds me of like some old time, like near the playoffs when they have the hockey coaches getting interviewed and they're always watching the games in the background. That's always multiple games on, whatever. But it's watching him getting excited about that. You can't. I know you guys think this guy's going to flame out, and I think he's going to flame out in a couple of years too. But I'm enjoying the ride, and as shitty as the Lions have been, at least that's something I think that Lions fans can kind of enjoy too.
I'm sorry, you think that Dan Campbell has a couple more years?
Well, we talked about the way that like the contracts are going to run, right? Like it's 2 years from now, they're going to have 26 guys under contract. So like he's kind of tied to the players for this year and for next year. That's not necessarily his fault because this isn't a star-studded roster, right? But they got all these players locked under deals, including Jared Goff on a bad deal. So I think that maybe give him 2 years, see if the GM at that time maybe wants to make some changes in free agency or whatever, and maybe give him his one last team here or one last year at a team anyway. I still think he's got a couple. I think that with Mark Davis coming out and talking about everybody needs to, or everybody wants instant results and yada, yada, yada. I don't think that them beating a divisional rival buys him time yesterday.
This guy has the rest of this shitty year to fill in, and up until their bye week next year when they're like 0-6, and then he'll be fired. And they're going to have a brand new coach on the stage while they're announcing their first overall pick in their home stadium when Detroit hosts the draft. Josh is so butthurt. His face
talking about, he said he was excited about watching and hearing the end about that Vikings game. Saw this thing today, and it was like, it's 4 pictures. It was like, tell me which one's the best catch. There's a Jefferson catch, which is unreal. I'll give it that. That was an unreal catch. That might have actually changed their seasons. That's a tone setter right there.
Oh yeah.
There was the Odell catch, the Edelman catch in the Super Bowl when he caught like half an inch off the ground, and then the David Tyree catch. I don't know. What do you think is the best catch in all of football?
Oh man, I might like. Didn't Diggs top that? I think his catch this past weekend too might have topped that, or the one he had last year was pretty tight too. I'm a big fan of Diggs. I like him.
I'm gonna
I
have
can tell you my
write-in
pick.
candidate. Yeah, write-in candidate is Antonio Holmes in the end zone.
That was mine.
That
100% the
that
greatest
wins
catch ever seen. Me and Shane have to talk
Yeah.
10,000 times.
It's a win. It wins the Super Bowl. I mean, the other one, like as much as the Jefferson catch is great, it was week 10, and the Odell Beckham thing, you were just a rookie. I mean, the Giants stunk that year. Like
I was gonna say it's Antonio Holmes because I don't listen to the. I know it was better, the throw or the catch. I actually have no idea. That was probably one of the greatest quarterback receiver moments in the history of football, and I think it's overlooked only because of James Harrison's touchdown.
Kalen and I lived together at the time, so we were all about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where would you land on something like that, Kalen?
Where would I land on those catches that are there?
Well, I mean,
you know what? I think out of all those catches, I think that I'm going to buy Jefferson only because this guy is an absolute highlight reel. He's going to break 2,000 yards this year. He's on pace to break it again after the 193-yard game. I like. He's feisty. Was against a good corner, good defense. I'm going with him.
So at the beginning of the year, I placed a bet, and I rode with one of the other pods that CoolBet sponsors, The Hedge. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it, but they had a bet where Justin Jefferson leads the NFL in receiving yards, Kirk Cousins leads the league in passing yards, and Dameon Pierce is the rookie of the year. That was a plus 100,000.
Holy Hannah.
So right now, I'm feeling pretty good about that. I mean, I'm not saying he's the runaway offensive player of the year right now, but maybe. And after the game that Cousins just put up with Jefferson, I mean, we're heading into week 11 and my bet's not dead. I feel pretty good about that. I mean, I think that they should be offering me a buyout at this point. They haven't done it yet, but
he's got a little bit to catch up on
Mahomes.
He did like a 600-yard game, but yeah, those are looking pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, they all three have to hit. So yeah, cool bet. If you're out there offering payouts, I'll take one. If you want my buyout, I'd probably go buy a whole bunch of hot sauce with it because we only got a limited supply of this Going for 2 peaches and pepper sauce. We're about to pick up the last couple of cases. So if anybody is still interested and you want to get refilled, now's the time because the holiday season's coming. These things are going to be stuffed in stockings. These things are going to be stuffed under trees. They're going to be filling up fridges. So get it while it still lasts. Team that performed like hot sauce was the Packers. And I don't know if you guys watched my Sunday Edge show, but I called the Packers as the big dog of the week.
Yeah, well, I mean, Dak is just not looking hot in that second half, is he? Third quarter, fourth quarter, Dak is completely different from first and second quarter Dak.
Red zone turnovers, man. Those things will kill you. Not like that's a hot take or anything, but
that's Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, yeah. But at the same time, like, missing Zeke doesn't help. This just goes to prove how important Zeke is to that team. They really do need to lean on the 2-headed attack. Tony Pollard can clip off 7 yards of run and get that bragging right. but you need the pass protection that Zeke brings to the table. You need that pound and ground that Zeke can bring to the table inside of the 20-yard line. I mean, like when he was, I think he was second or third as far as red zone percentage, touchdowns before he got hurt. So I don't know. When he comes back, I think things will be better for him. But this just proves, I mean, he is kind of worth his value at this point because they're a much different team when Zeke plays for sure. And this is, CeeDee Lamb went off. This isn't a team that wasn't successful on offense, right? They just stuttered down the stretch, and I think it's because the team, the defense over in Green Bay clued into what Dak was doing down the stretch, right? If they were able to design a few more run plays in there with Zeke being there, or screen plays with Zeke being there, maybe you open up that defense a little bit better in that second half, right?
Looks like there's a little bit of breaking news on Cooper Kupp. Just hold on a sec.
Well, I saw there was he was going to be out for a little bit, but I think it's just a recap of what's going on with him there.
Yeah, it looks like there's a sprain, maybe like a fracture or something. But yeah, that'll be huge for the Rams, and like again in like a nothing game, and with a quarterback that really didn't have any business being in that game. I think it's wild that all the investments that the Rams have made everywhere, that their backup quarterback was cut by the Blue Bombers 2 years ago.
And I tell you the greatest thing about fantasy football. So I offered me to someone in our league who's in dead last in my league. I'm in second. I was like, I don't need a player, but let me just put a feeler out there and see what this person has. Cooper Kupp, Josh Jacobs, and Mark Andrews on their team. And they're dead last. So that's how bad the rest of their team is.
Mm-hmm.
I said to them, I have St. Brown, Mike Evans, and ETN all on the board. What will it take to give me one of them? I don't care which one. I'll do a 2-for-1 for any of them. You need starters in depth. You have 3 guys who are just that you're living off of. I can give you 2 starting receivers and a starting running back for one of those people. And they told me no. Very same night, Andrews goes down. Loser. Literally 2 weeks later, now Cooper Kupp's out. They have no team left now, and they're dead last. They were 1 game out of the playoffs at the time.
Yeah, so you're saying there's a chance. Maybe they'll find a way to fight their way back into this thing.
But it's like, this is why I always love when people get married to players. Like they're worth something. They're not worth anything at this point. It's football. You're going to get 3 starters for 1, and you said no because you thought their name was worth more than my guys. All 3 of those guys are in the top 15 in their position.
Well, I mean, their loss is your gain, and when it comes down to it, like fantasy, you're right. Like people overvalue their players. You pick somebody in the first round, you automatically expect to get first round value. I picked Najee Harris in the first round. I'm not getting first round value for Najee Harris, even though he almost broke 100 yards. And interesting, and we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about the Steelers, but I know we got the Steelers and the Titans to cover still here a little bit. The blueprint of what they did to the Saints was exactly what I expected them to do to everybody this year, which was play good defense, run the ball, and throw it downfield when you need to. Now, I thought Trubisky was going to be the guy that did that. Looked like Pickett really studied up in the bye week. I've never felt better about next year in any sporting event in my life, but I think that the Steelers process is probably going to be 2 or 3 years, and they're going to be a legitimate threat. It might be 2024, but I think Lamar Jackson's going to leave the division. I mean, Joe Burrow's going to be there for a long time.
Lamar's coming to me.
I agree, and I think Tom Brady's going to the 49ers, but that's just one guy's opinion. And Deshaun Watson's going to go work for the rib job and meat rub company down here in London. So I think that the AFC North is wide open. In case you didn't know what I was talking about, I'm not being gross. New local company that we work with. Yeah, I think the Steelers have a lot of great things working in their favor. They just got a second-round pick for Chase Claypool, who has 3 catches since becoming a Bear. The Bears were on a winning streak, and they haven't won with Claypool. The Steelers haven't lost since moving him. Two things that are certain: Tom Brady divorced, and Claypool-less Steelers. Both are undefeated.
Everybody's happy.
Everybody's
I
happy.
would say everybody's happy.
What? I was in a group chat last night, and we were predicting who Tom Brady's next girlfriend is. And hey, you probably not something that we're gonna spend a whole lot of time talking about here. But go ahead, Chad.
Oh, I'm supposed to take Tom Brady's next. Take a picture.
No. I'm saying pivot.
Oh, I was like, wow, that's quite the jump. No, man, I'm gonna talk about my Bucks for a minute. It was probably the best I've seen them look all year. They actually look like the Buccaneers from a year ago. Truth. Godwin's, there's something going on there. They got to figure that out. I don't know if he has any confidence in the knee, but I don't think he's catching the ball. Like I think his head's somewhere else. Mike Evans is doing exactly what Mike Evans does. The young tight end Auden is obviously he's not Gronk. I will not say he's Gronk. That's an insult to Gronk. But he has become a pretty safe outlet for Tom Brady in the middle. Like he's figuring out what his role is. Mm-hmm. And we ran the football. The exact same thing the Packers did yesterday. They ran the football. You have quarterbacks who are definitely on the end of their career. You have to help them out. Tom Brady cannot throw the ball 45 times a game. Aaron Rodgers cannot throw the ball anymore 45 times a game. Getting the run game going was the best thing Tampa did. Leonard Fournette can play football. But they, for some reason in Tampa, the second the run doesn't work in the first quarter, they shut it down for the game. But yeah, we can keep that rolling. The defense started clicking in. We had a bunch of starters finally come back on the back end. We had no secondary for 3 weeks. So now they're back. I'm not going to come out and say that we're taking the NFC because I don't really think that we have that in us. But I do think that we are going to come out. I think we're going to run the pretty much. I think we're going to win it to get to the top of the division now. Like we're 5-5. We're in a bye week this week. I still think that 11-6 is a realistic number for us.
Ooh, whoa! That's like the 15-1 prediction from 2 years ago. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt to me that the Bucks are winning the division. The Saints are, I don't know, average at best. Andy Dalton, when he doesn't turn the ball over, the Saints can do what they did to the Raiders and shut them out 24-0. But then, you get a little bit of pressure on them, and then they turn into what they turned into when TJ Watt and Highsmith were kind of taking over the game. They get a little bit worried. They don't know who they want to put in at quarterback between Taysom Hill and Andy Dalton. Jameis Winston is just a guy that's forgotten. Wasted talent in Chris Olave. A lot of money spent on the defense that's not really coming to fruition. And then you got the Falcons, who to me, I don't think Mariota's played bad enough to get benched, but the fan base is calling for him to get benched. They want to see what Desmond Ritter's all about. The coach is not willing to play that game. So because of how messy, and I mean, Baker Mayfield's going back to being the starter in Carolina, because of all those things, I don't think you need 11-6. I mean, 11-6 would be nice, and it's probably good for your seeding. But I still think that they'll have a hard time getting to the 10 wins.
Yeah, I mean, you got to play the Saints. I mean, Brady only just got the monkey off his back this season regarding the Saints and beating them, right? So it was a good win, but you still got to play them again. You got to play the Bengals, the Niners. Then that's your stretch of like tough games. It's what's coming up next year anyway. But I mean, defense. You mentioned them being backed. I mean, there was a couple of very timely sacks there by White. But Geno, I mean, as he's been doing this season, carved him up like single-handedly. He did pretty well against that defense, which is still a bit of a worry. That secondary gives it some chunk yardage to some silly plays here and there. But
they're bend not break, right? That's kind of how they even the last 2 years. That's how they were. They would let guys move the ball down the field, and they collapse inside the 35, and they play real tight there. And I think that's that's who they are. It's a Todd Bowles style defense. It's not super aggressive. I don't find it all. They only send 4 usually. The odd time they might send 1 backer, but they play soft coverage. So yeah, like they do allow chunk plays. Like when they get inside their own 35 is where they really crack down. So I'm not going to say they're the best defense in the league by any means, but I think they're getting back to who they were.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where 5 more minutes on the game clock, and we might be having a different conversation this morning because there was a little bit of a collapse starting to come down the pipe. But I mean, they only play 60 minutes unless they go into overtime, so kind of hard to say. If they played 65 minutes, you'd lose. I mean, none of that's a guarantee, but a couple turnovers at the end. And Seattle's just one of those scrappy teams. I think they're going to kind of hang around. But I mean, the class of the NFC has got to go the Eagles, the Vikings, the 49ers, and then slightly down a tier, and then you're at the Bucks, and then then you can start seeding the teams underneath the Bucks. I don't know if you guys disagree with any of that stuff, but it kind of goes the same way in the AFC, and like we'll jump onto the Titans for a second. When the Titans fell down 10-0, all I thought was, wow, this is the absolute safest bet of all time. I'm going to bet a live money line bet on the Titans because there's no way that they're losing this game to the Broncos.
Yeah, I've said it before. I think this will probably be the fourth time that I've said it. Now that I've watched another game of him live against my team's defense, which has been very good, 6 straight game with 3+ sacks. I mean, they're bringing the heat. That was without Jeff Simmons, without Bud Dupree, without starting corner, without our starting safety. Had 5 starters on defense missing yesterday, and they still were able to get home. But can we finally admit that the receivers did more for Russell Wilson than Russell Wilson did for the receivers in Seattle?
I've never once said I like Russell Wilson. I'm putting that out there right now. So do not put those words in my mouth. I've never once said that I like Russell Wilson.
Well, he has this big hype about being a guy that extended plays behind the pocket and would throw up the ball. And I have had this argument. And it doesn't take a lot of talent to run around behind the line of scrimmage and heave a ball 30 to 60 yards downfield. Of course, you have to have arm strength, okay? But is it the receiver that's adjusting to the ball or fighting for the ball with the 2 to 3, sometimes 4 DBs that are around him and potentially another receiver coming over top to try and fight for it too? Does Aaron Rodgers really deserve all the praise for hucking Hail Marys and winning the game, or is it the receiver that comes down with the ball fighting for it in a scrum? I think of players like Paul Richardson, Tyler Lockett, who's one of the best, again, adjusting receivers in the NFL. DK Metcalf is going to outman damn near about any corner in the league besides maybe Sauce Gardner. So these are receivers that he has had with him throughout his career that have just always been adjusted, have always made the play for him. And it's not like he has not Jerry Jeudy went down early, but it's not like he doesn't have good receiving weapons over in Denver, but there's certainly not the caliber or the talent that we've seen that he had over in Seattle. And I know that people want to talk like, I know you guys talk about stats or I talk about stats like PFF rating. You guys don't really look at that, but this one, he's 32 out of 39 qualifying quarterbacks. Last year, he was 16th. Year before that was 5th. And the year before that was 1st. If they're talking about a major decline, I think this is just Russell Wilson and his wide receivers becoming inept. Like, this is just what it was. They did all the work for him. His offensive line was trash, and he couldn't heave a ball further than 40 yards downfield accurately. So I'm completely off. It's hilarious these guys are tied to this guy for 2 more years. Like, they cannot get off of him at all. They have no draft picks in the first round for the next 2 years. There's 3 years they gave up for that.
2 years.
2 years, plus more on top of that. This is going to be the demise of the Denver Broncos. We talked about the AFC West being this amazing division that we're going to potentially have 4 winning records, maybe all 4 going to the playoffs. It's an absolute joke out there right now. And again, because I've been pounding the drum and Russell Wilson not being that good, I'm enjoying every minute of it. And I love what I saw yesterday with my defense, just beating the shit out of them for 60 minutes.
Can you do me a favor? Can you go back to all of our shows where I had to listen to Kalen yell out moonshots in my face? Or Russell Wilson. I would love to know how many times that was.
Chad. It was not for my love of Russell Wilson.
I don't know, man. You were pretty passionate about it.
The Russell Wilson thing, like, we can't sit here and say he's a bad quarterback because he's not a bad quarterback. He's just in a completely different offense. Nathaniel Hackett doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know how to call plays. He's not calling enough run plays. He's not getting them set up. And that's why Seattle was always in a good spot with Russell Wilson. You run the ball. You can work off play action. You can do the boots. You can't run a boot if you're not running the ball. You just look like an idiot.
This is the second best defense overall in the league. Like, think of where they are right now. And if they had just scored, I think I read a stat today, if they had scored 18 points in every game this season, just 18, which isn't a lot to ask for in 2022 football, they would be 8-1 now. Like, it's just very small, a field goal this way, an extra point that actually goes in this way. And these guys have a winning record. And it's not because of their offense. Like, it's strictly because of their defense. They have the number 1 passing defense in the league. Patrick Surtain is absolutely incredible watching that guy. He completely eliminated 1/3 of the field. I would almost say half of the field. Forget 1/3. He took out 1/2 of the field. So amazing player, amazing defense. It's just an absolute shame that Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive mastermind that was brought there to be with this player they traded for, can't get it together. And it's not like they don't have some offensive weapons there, right? And Garrett Bowles, I don't know, this is a funny thing I read too. Since he said to Russell Wilson, nobody's going to hit you here when you got traded there, he's on pace now to be sacked more than he ever was in Seattle as it stands right now. So
yeah, they're awful. And, you know, there's teams that are on the complete opposite. And one team that comes to mind, I mean, the Broncos are shit. Their season's written off. They traded away one of their pass rushers to Miami for a first-round pick because they realize how desperate they are. But another team that gave away a bunch of picks and, you know, maybe they were criticized a little bit. And you said, Kalen, this isn't the Christian McCaffrey of 2018. I'm telling you that there's never been more talent on the 49ers right now. I don't care if it's Jimmy Garoppolo playing quarterback. They have George Kittle. They have Brandon Ayuk. They have Deebo Samuels, who Deebo Samuels had 2 catches yesterday, and they were still able to win. It doesn't matter how many points they fall down by. This team has a strong enough defense, a really, really, really strong run game, and Garoppolo can make passes when it comes down to it. They have enough guys there that if all of these guys hadn't already got paid, we'd start to hear some grumbling because there's not enough balls to go around for all of them. The 49ers might not lose a game for the rest of the regular season, and they might not lose a game for the rest of the year. And how wild is that, considering Tom Brady is going to play quarterback for them next year?
Right? And okay, now that being said, there was some they won the game, right? I can only knock a team that wins so much, but did McCaffrey not come out in every red zone? What was that about? I don't know if you watched the game or not yesterday, but I think he was only in for like one red zone drive that he actually saw the field.
To them, it's like practice. It's just practice. They're just getting ready for the playoffs now. They know.
I honestly think they're putting him on a pitch count. Not being on like 100% serious.
Yeah.
Yes, he has problems. We know that. If we don't need to give him the ball 25 times a game. He doesn't have to be that guy. Give the ball 15 times, I'm going to do it. And at the same time, said not in the red zone. You still got to make everybody else happy too.
Yeah, right. Now, but that also being said, I mean, like if we're talking about earlier, I brought up, you know, Derek Carr and missing all of his weapons. You know, Herbert is missing left tackle 1, right tackle 1, wide receiver 1, 2, and 4, tight end 1, 2, and 3 went out yesterday after the second quarter. This is another guy who just completely had dilapidated weapons yesterday to use against what we've talked, the number 1 defense in the league, talent-wise and stat-wise, they're the number 1 defense, no doubt. I don't know, like they were a touchdown away from winning, right? Like this is with a completely depleted team. They still have to play the Dolphins this year. They have to play. I always say I'm not always, but I keep coming. The Cardinals, I think, at some point can put a victory against a divisional opponent this year, and they're going to play the Seahawks too. So there's still some times I think that they can put some duds up on the board. But we joked about it. This is a quarterback who doesn't have to throw touchdowns to win games. How often does that happen in 2022 football?
I just want to say I don't ever bet on the Cardinals, Kalen. I've been on like I keep saying they're going to win a game 2 for 3 years now, and it hasn't happened. So I'm just going to save you some misery. Don't ever go down the Cardinal rabbit hole.
Rather head-scratching move today with them cutting Ito Benjamin, eh?
Yeah, I'm going to assume there's going to be more to that story that comes out. Like something happened somewhere, and I mean, whether he called out the coach or called out because he's not getting a lot of playing time, but James
played the whole time that Connor was out, right? He still has like I think it was like 4.5 yard average or something like that. He's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, he played for like 1.5 games while Connor sat on the bench or like healing up. But Connor's clearly the number 1 back there. They've paid him some money. There's no way that they want to go any other way. So I bet you there's going to be something weird that comes out. Like maybe he got a Dewey or maybe he said something to somebody in the locker room he wasn't supposed to. But there's no way they just cut him based on football talent because that doesn't make any sense. The 49ers are definitely going to be a team to be reckoned with, and it's not to put down the Chargers. I think that the Chargers are going to be the kind of team that hangs around and then gets kind of sneaky at the end when they start to get all their guys back. Justin Herbert finally started to look like Justin Herbert again yesterday, even with not great receivers around him. So watch out for that. I think the Eckler and the fact that they don't have a run game is kind of holding them back right now, and the fact that they might have the worst coach in the league, which considering all the other bad coaches in the league, that's definitely saying something. Anything else from week 10, or do you want to just pick this game and go watch Joe Buck and Troy Aikman here?
Well, the last thing I want to say about the Titans here is our punter, the rookie punter. I know we talk about we bring punters on the show, so I got to show some pride in my punter right now, who currently is 2.5 yards up on the I guess the record for the net average for punters in his rookie season. Now, cold weather's coming. We know that that's going to shorten up those punts a little bit, but he might actually take it home. So we talked early in the season with Kern being cut after 13 years there. That was a big cut to the Titans, the punter. He tweeted out and said this is the reason why his golf game is so good. So I think that's pretty fun. Hopefully we see some other boys that we know in the big leagues and they can start, making strides toward that record too, right?
Yeah, I would say until your punter can play fullback for you also.
God,
We're not
he's
we're
a
not worried
weapon,
about
Shane. He
we're not
4
worried about
pins
it.
inside or 5 pins inside the 10-yard line in the first quarter alone.
Yeah. Chad, what do you got? Nothing?
I don't know how you top someone just jumping on a punter's dick there, so I'm good.
Yeah.
And the Eagles are going to win today.
All right. So I think the Eagles are going to win also, but I'm going to say that the Commanders covered the 12.5 spread.
Oof. Yeah, that's a big spread. That's a lot of points.
Yeah.
Eagles win. Smith with a big game for fantasy, right?
All right. Well, you heard it here. Sounds like the Commanders are going to win because we all picked the Eagles. Make sure that you're checking out the Instagram and Facebook. Subscribe to the YouTube. Hit the notifications button. Josh is out there killing the TikTok. Somebody's sitting there behind our Twitter account having some fun on weekends. So definitely lots of fun excitement out there.